We left off last video getting our appetizer object ready. In this video, we're going to build this list view that you see here. So back into our code, we already have our appetizer list view created. Remember, kind of our dummy mockup for the tab bar, but all we have in here is a text that says that. Well, we're going to replace this with a list. So let's get rid of all this. We'll retype that navigation title later. List, and then open it up. So you got a lot of possible, initializers here. We just want the simple one, blank, which is our array, ID, and row content. So here you can see the data we have is a random access collection, which is an array. So the array we're going to use is our mock data dot appetizers, right? That's that array we created. In the key path here, we wanted to do dot ID. And if you remember, we can conform to identifiable to not have to do that. We'll come back to that in a second, but right now we want to just use the ID. I wanted to spell that out for you. And then the content here, I can delete that because we can just put the view builder here. Then we need to do appetizer in, right? So this, in our list here, we're going to have, it's going to iterate through the mock data.appetizers, and we're going to get an appetizer for each one. And then in here, we're going to create our cell for each appetizer. But for now, just to get Xcode to stop yelling at us, I think I'm missing a closing curly brace here. Yep. For now, to get Xcode to stop yelling at us, let's just do text, and then we'll use appetizer.name, right? We'll just print out that, just the name of the appetizer in our list view, just to get this structure, running. So let's open up our canvas so we can see that here. Get this going. I forgot to start that. Hit resume. We are on the iPhone 12 Pro. It is 75%. Cool, there we are. Test appetizer. Remember, if we go back to our appetizer, that's what we named our sample. So that is working. Back to our appetizer list view. Let's add that navigation title to our list, remember, not the navigation view. The navigation titles goes on the element inside the navigation view. So .navigation title, and then, command control space to pull up the emojis. We wanted French fries. You can put whatever you want in there. Appetizers, there we go. Let's get our navigation title back. Okay, so again, that is just basically how you create a simple list, right? List, initialize it with an array of an object. We're going to go ahead and conform to identifiable right now. So we don't need to have this ID, but I'm going to run through the rest of this real quick. So as it's iterating through our array of appetizers, we get, just like in a for loop, we get an appetizer variable that we can use here. So for every appetizer, we're going to create a text cell that just has the appetizer.name. That's what's going on here. So that's the very, very bare bones minimum of a list. But again, first, back in appetizer, let's also make this conform to identifiable. And then now in our list view, we can get rid of this ID just to clean stuff up a little bit. Now, one thing, our sample data, it's going to work to show stuff, but if we were doing this more advanced, it wouldn't work. And I want to point out why. That it uses that ID as a unique identifier, a way to identify each object. Well, if you look at our appetizers, right, we have our sample appetizer with an ID of 001, whatever. Well, we have 4 of the same sample appetizers in there, right? So they're all going to have the same ID. It's going to be fine for the basics of what we're using, but I want to point this out that, if we were moving items within the table or deleting stuff and inserting stuff, that would be an issue. It's not going to be an issue for us, but I wanted to point that out. Okay, so appetizer list view, here we go. Let's start creating our cell because just this text, not exactly what we're looking for. We want to build this cell that you see on the screen, and it's going to be a challenge for you. You can pause right now, pause the video. If you want to try to build out this cell here, basically just replace this text with, spoiler alert, it's going to be an H stack. If you want to build your H stack here, give it a shot, go for it. But now's your last chance to pause if you want to try to build that yourself, because here we go. Okay, so looking at the structure of the cell, like I said, it's an H stack. On the left side of the H stack, we have our image. But then on the right side of the H stack, we have a V stack that holds our title and price, right? Pretty simple structure. We've done something similar before, but let's walk through this, right? So overall, let's get rid of our text. Let's make it an H stack with our view builder here. The first part of our H stack is going to be our image. Like I said, we're going to initialize this image with a name, right? Because remember, in our XC assets, we brought over the Asian flank steak. So again, to prevent typos, Command-C, appetizer list view, it's just paste that name in here, the Asian flank steak, bam. Not exactly what we're looking for, and that's because the images come in kind of raw, right? So if you remember, on all the images, we want to do resizable. Again, I'm not going to say you always want to do that, but 99.9% of the time, you're probably going to want to have resizable on your images. So that resized it to fit the screen. However, the aspect ratio is off, right? It's not what our image looks like. So we need to add the aspect ratio, right? So aspect ratio content mode, we want to fit to the entire area, but we don't know the area yet. So that's going to look like no difference. We need to give it a frame, right? So give it a frame with the width and height. You see that defaulted to 100 by 100, but you'll notice our image is more of a landscape. It's actually 600 by 450, so it's not a perfect square, but our frame is a perfect square. So you can see because we did fit, it's not filling the entire square. Let me go back to fill, and you'll see now it will fill the entire square, but that's not the look we want. We want to do fit, and we want to match the aspect ratio of our images. This is where, knowing your design and building to a design spec comes into play. So we know our images are 600 by 450. So we want to keep that aspect ratio just at a smaller size. So we're gonna do 120 by 90. Okay, that gives us the size we're looking for, based on our design. And we don't need this alignment parameter. Okay, so the last thing we need to do for our image is our corner radius of 8. Remember, it's got that subtle corner radius, not overbearing, but it just, doesn't have so many sharp edges. I like that look. So that's our image in our H stack. Remember what's on the right side of our H stack is the V stack, which contains the two texts holding our price and stuff. So let's do V stack. Scroll up a bit. And there's going to be a text, as you saw here. And the text we want to put in here is going to be the appetizer name. So appetizer.name. And remember, this is the appetizer that we're iterating through our array and creating each cell, right? So again, we have all the same sample data in there, so it's all going to say test appetizer. But like I said, this is just to get the structure of the UI. And then we want this to be a font.title2 is what we're going to go for. And then we want this to be .font weight of medium. And again, this is just me matching a design spec, right? If you want to change the look and feel of this, make it super big and bold or tiny and small, have at it, play around with this. This is just the design that I came up with. So that is the name. However, below it, smaller, less emphasized, we want to have the price. So here we can do text. And here we can't just do appetizer.price because that's a double, right? Text needs a string. So we need to use some string interpolation here. Appetizer.price, but we're going to want a $sign in front of it. Now you'll notice, we don't want all those decimal places, right? 999.000, like we don't want that. So within my string interpolation, if I do comma specifier, I can add a string, and this is a little weird, I get it, %.2f. That's 2 decimal places. If I wanted no decimal places, I would just get rid of that 2, and you can see it's going to round up to $10 instead of $9.99. 1f, 1 decimal place. There you go. You can see on the right, we got 1 decimal place. We want 2 decimal places because this is a price. And then now, as you see in the design, this is it's like a lighter gray. It's not the black text color. So we want to do foreground color dot secondary, right? So this is kind of like that secondary color you can see here that'll gray it out. And then we want to do dot font weight dot semi-bold, right? We do want the price to be, kind of bold. Now, you'll notice here in our text, it's centering the items here, right? See, test appetizer and $9.99 are centered. Well, we want them to align on the left. So in order to do that, we can update our V stack here to have the alignment parameter. I don't think we've used this yet. We've used spacing, but we haven't used alignment, right? So there you go. You can do alignment, spacing, then content. We're just going to do the alignment, and we're going to do dot leading. Right, so now if you look here, now they all got pushed to the left to be leading. And I feel like the test appetizer and the numbers are too cramped, so we are going to use the spacing parameter as well. And we're going to give that a 5 to start here. Right, you see that just spaced it out a little bit? I'll do that again. Watch the test appetizer and the price. You see, super cramped. And if we go back to 5, just a little bit of extra spacing. So you can tweak your design a bit. And then another thing I want to tweak about my V stack here, again, we're working with this V stack, just the stack of the name and the price. I feel like it's too cramped up close to the pictures. So I want to add a little extra padding just to space that out a bit. So here at the bottom of my V stack, I can do padding. I can do padding all around. That's fine. You're not going to notice the difference here. If I wanted to be very specific though, remember I can do padding dot leading. And there you go. That only gives the padding on the leading edge. Now you can't see it because nothing is on the right, but now there'll be no padding on the top, no padding off to the right, just padding on the leading edge. Okay, so we have the basic structure of our cell here. Let's run it in the simulator just to see what we're getting, make sure nothing is weird is going on because we're going to refactor this next, but I want to, again, run it to test it. Because I always like to make sure my stuff is working before I refactor, right? If you refactor something that's not working yet, that's tricky. But anyway, here we are in the simulator, scrolling up and down. Things seem to be fine. I can't tap it. We haven't added that yet. But again, our cells looking good. All right, so let's refactor it and wrap up this video. So this is common what you want to do for your cells here. And our cell, if you remember, is basically this H stack. That's the cell that we just built. So we want to take this H stack and move it into its own file called, appetizer list cell. Now I just said move it into its own file. That's fine. Remember, organization is subjective. I wouldn't argue with you if you wanted to keep it in this file, but just move it like down here to the bottom. Wouldn't argue with that at all. I don't know. I like having a folder of cells because oftentimes cells get reused. So just a habit of mine. I like to create a folder called cells and put it there. We're going to do project reorganization in a few more videos. So don't worry about creating that folder just yet, but let's create that file. So in appetizers, Command N, it's going to be a Swift UI view. Hit next. And Swift UI view is going to be appetizer list cell. Hit create. And then we can literally just go to our appetizer list view, copy the H stack, and then go to our appetizer list cell, get rid of the hello world text, paste it in there, but you're going to notice something, right? We don't have access to appetizer. So we have to have appetizer be a variable on our list cell so we can pass the appetizer into the cell and then it will create itself. So we'll do let appetizer, that is of type appetizer. Hit return here, do Command B, and now the only thing missing is our preview. Remember I said you got to initialize your previews with all the information you need. The information our cell needs is an appetizer, right? So fix that, appetizer, and then this is why we created our mock data. So mock data dot sample appetizer, right? If we didn't have that mock data, we would have to do this, right? We'd have to do appetizer and then initialize that, and then look at this long initializer. It gets ridiculous. This is why we create mock data.sample appetizer. Nice and clean. We got it right there. Now, if I hit resume on my preview, we should be able to preview this cell, and there it is. Now, what looks different than what we saw on our cell, like look at all this padding here, is because right now, it's just an H stack by itself, right? In this preview, it's not in the context of a list, right? A list has very specific formatting that if we go back to our list view, like it handles all the formatting of a list. So that's why the previews look a little different. But back here in our appetizer list view, we can get rid of this H stack, right? Be gone. And then now we can just replace that with appetizer list cell. And then you'll see that takes in an appetizer, and then we're just going to pass in the appetizer that we have here as we iterate through our array. So right, that cleans up this screen nicely, right? You just got a navigation view with the list in it. You can see the list has appetizer list cell with an appetizer and then our navigation title. Of course, this is just the very basics of our screen, but you can see how it reads nicely, pretty easy to understand what's going on here. Now this is just our mock data, right? The real app we want, we're going to hit a server, we're going to get the appetizer JSON, we're going to parse that JSON with Quotable, then we're going to populate our list with that downloaded data. So let's start that process. That's going to take us a couple videos to do, but the first step in that process is to set up our network call and make sure we're getting the right data back from the server. So let's do that.